Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by Farm Credit. Well, after a weekend where we watched Hurricane Hilary come up through the Baja as a powerful hurricane, slowly weaken as it moved over California, and is moving here on Monday into parts of the Pacific Northwest around this massive ridge, well, the whole talk about weather is going to shift to this and how long this big ridge is going to be around. So as you look at the flow right now, and we kind of recount how much rain fell out of Hilary and what's coming out of the Atlantic, this is going to be the most dominant feature, and it's a big ridge. Now, what you'll get out of this is a lot of ridge riding storms, and it will help guide some of our tropical systems. Most stuff that's out in the Atlantic will be pushed off and stay in the Atlantic, like Emily's track, which I'll show you in a few moments. Unless you're talking about this system that's in the Gulf of Mexico, which is to the south, but it's going to get pulled into southern Texas. But outside of that, what we can be on the lookout for here, right in parts of the Carolinas down into Georgia, are isolated storm events. Now, because of this large ridge, we're already watching here on Sunday night just an expansive area of heat warnings that have stretched all the way from Texas clear to Wisconsin into Minnesota, parts of North Dakota, and this is going to continue to be a major concern throughout the week. And as I was recording this late on Sunday evening, you can still see the tropical storm warning that is out here in parts of Southern California, and this is all wind warning, and we have flood watches out. And what's kind of tragic about this is that on the northern side of it, we watched for the last several days massive wildfires in Oregon, Washington, and British Columbia, which put a bunch of smoke into the mix with all of this. In fact, it's interesting, if you go look right now, just as the sun was setting here on Sunday evening, you can actually see the smoke that's in the air. I'm sure how well you could all see it there, but it would probably give you a little bit more of a redder sunset. But this is the large cloud field that is associated with the northern edge of Hilary, which when I was recording this again on Sunday evening, that's where the main part of Hilary is. So smoke to the north, large cloud shield ahead of it, and you can really just see throughout the day today where that ridge is beginning to open itself up. So what do we get out of this? You get a lot of what you see right in through here. You can see it, the storms that are popping in that area. That's going to be, I think, a major component of our flow for the next several days. Okay, let's get a quick update here. Let me see if I got a new map. This is our newest update at 7 p.m. on Sunday evening of rainfall totals coming through the Baja and into California, even in parts of southern Nevada. We have a lot of places here that have picked up already 3 to 4 inches of rain. And I'm sure you heard a lot over the weekend about people talking about the Mojave Desert and some of the rainfall that'll be falling in here. There will be places that pick up 2 years worth of rainfall in about a 48-hour time span. So the rock slides, mudslides, the issues with elevation here are going to continue to be a major problem. Midsection of the country is going to go very dry, and we're going to watch tropical system to the Atlantic, but because of that ridge, we don't anticipate them getting over to the East Coast. You can still see, though, the scattered storms that we did get out of this pattern. There is actually a stalled out frontal boundary still sitting here off our coast. So let's grab a look at a couple things here. This is what we know about Tropical Storm Hilary as of the evening here on Sunday. It was down to 60-mile-an-hour sustained winds, and there's a lot of wind gusts in and around Southern California as I'm recording this that are in that 40 to 60-mile-an-hour range. And it is expected to maintain tropical depression strength all the way until this kind of border between Nevada, Oregon, and Idaho. But that's going to be it. It's just going to be about its rainfall after that, and then the cleanup of all the flooding that's going to be happening in Southern California. Now remember, there are still parts of California that have been flooding since last winter. I'm talking about the Tulare Basin, the flooding that's going on there. But what we're going to keep an eye on is what's going on out here in the Atlantic. Actually, let me take you back. I want to show you the... There it is. This is the latest data we've got here in the evening. This is a 7:59 p.m. update. We've got Emily, Tropical Depression 6, and Franklin that are out spinning around. Let's have a quick look at Franklin. Now, this is going to be very telling of what's going on in the tropics. You see, notice how Franklin's getting pulled back to the north like this. So it's going to go over the island of Hispaniola, get pulled back out into the open Atlantic. I'm going to go back, and I want to show you next what we think about Emily, just as an example. Same thing. Pulled to the north, not making its way over to the U.S. coast. And we've got a large ridge in place, and the Bermuda High is out here hanging around. So that's why it's pulling these systems in this direction. So at this stage, we're not necessarily watching any of these tropical systems near the U.S. coast, except for the system that is right now, just right here, having a 70% chance of development. That is a system we're going to watch get over these very warm waters. They're well into the low 90s for ocean temperatures here. We're going to see how this moves towards Texas and if it is able to rapidly intensify before it gets to Texas. Should it come into Texas, though, this will be some of the first rainfall in Texas in months. All right. So this is the big idea. That's the ridge we're dealing with on Monday. Watch where it's going to be throughout this week. So let's play forward. This is getting into Tuesday, Wednesday. So did you notice that? We had one tropical low dive here. The other ones are staying out to open ocean, and the ridge is just this large protective shield in the midsection of the country through the end of this week. Now what we're noticing in the pattern is troughing is beginning to form here in the Aleutian Islands. We get this high over low setup late this week. That's going to be between Alaska, the Northwest Territories here, or excuse me, the Yukon, and also out here into the Gulf of Alaska. So what this is going to do is this is going to help block the pattern up and bring this ridge back farther to the west. And by the time we get into this weekend, it's going to dig a trough into the eastern half of the country. So we're going to see a change in the temperatures once we get out there past this weekend, but it's a week of heat before that. Then as we play forward, see our high over low is still set up here into early next week. We get out there into next, Wednesday, and again, the pattern goes back to a ridge that kind of sits here in the plains with a broader trough over the east. So we need to take a look at what that's going to mean and how to explain what it's going to do to our precipitation pattern. So let's just start off with the next 7 days. Who's got the best chance of getting an inch of rainfall? Well, of course, it's where the remnants of Hillary are moving through the west. Outside of that, most of Ag South territory very dry. This is the tropical system coming into parts of Texas and expected to curl around, delivering some storms into this area late this week. Now, if we just step this up to see how much rain we're talking about, this is the chances of getting 4 inches of rain down here. And there are places that are inside of this kind of area down here that they annually get 5 inches of rain. So this is a pretty substantial event. So what we need to do is flip it over to the drier side of the forecast. And this is our outlook through the 27th on the chances of getting a half of an inch of rainfall or less. Now let me take this out to 10 days. And if I do that, stop it right there, you start to see a little bit of a decrease in our coastal areas here as we work our way into the very end of the month. But overall, the midsection of the country is going to be very dry. Now, quick update on cotton and corn. On the corn side of things, most of the crop is made. And what I mean by that is at this point, we've gotten past most of the grain fill, and we're doing the big national yield checks right now, which we don't do until we see where the crop is going to be. And the only thing that this heat and dryness is going to hurt is the crop that's already in bad shape. So I'm thinking about parts of Missouri, this corner of Iowa, sections of Nebraska. Now that's not to say there aren't places elsewhere that are having problems, but those are just a few of these highlighted areas that I'm thinking about here. Okay, that's 10 days. Now, what I want to do next is break it down for you, though, because today's WPC, I think, has a better understanding over the next 7 days of the isolated storm events that we're going to see rolling around this ridge. Now, you've probably heard the term tossed around. I use it all the time, but this term ridge rider. What ends up happening is where the dome of kind of really warm temperatures sit here, around its edge, there's actually better lift in the atmosphere. There are little shortwaves that roll around. In fact, the edges of the dome act as a front, and on top of that, you can just get better, rising motion, and therefore the resulting effect here is storms. So this is not a bone dry week for everyone. It is in the midsection of the country, but not here. I think from the Carolinas down through Georgia, we're going to see some isolated storms come through. I would like to show you that in the European model just to kind of get a sense of this. So you'll watch first what's left of Hillary move through the Pacific Northwest. And you'll notice that you're not going to see a whole lot on the imagery here, but there will be isolated storms at times that roll through parts of the southeast. And it won't be until we get through Friday into Saturday that we actually get a front that comes through that delivers some rain to North Carolina. And so up until then, it's just isolated storms popping on the heat of the day. But notice, by this end of this week into the weekend, we've got better chances of getting some rain. Now, what's interesting is when we get out here to Saturday, this large frontal boundary striped right in through here will likely be the thing that keeps this next system away from the U.S. coast. So you can see it right there showing up in the European model. So let's make a jump out there to week 2 and just have a look at what the models are saying here on Sunday. Notice we have above average precipitation here, dry in the Midwest, wet Northwest. That is also echoed in the European model, almost the same path. The GFS has been out to lunch for a while, so let's just keep our focus on these two forecast models. And I want to kind of explain what I think is going on, right into this particular area. First of all, do you see how the MJO right now is out in the western hemisphere? It's in the Pacific Ocean. That is one of the reasons why the Atlantic has really got a lot of activity right now. If we combine that with the fact that we can see where this big subtropical high is pulling systems, though, we notice that this is not going to be the culprit for delivering the rain in this area, right? So even though there's good reason to believe that there's going to be a lot of tropical activity over the next 10 days in the Atlantic, the position of the Bermuda High is offset too much to give us a really good chance at having tropical systems, at least over the next 7 to 10 days. So what is giving us this wetter signal that we've got right in here? Well, I was looking at the upper level jet stream flow by the time we finished this month. And what I noticed here is that the jet stream, just watch the cursor, it kind of dives in, turns and goes over the ridge that's sitting here, and then dives into the east. And now look at this piece here. Starting in Virginia and racing to like Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, there is a piece of the jet that's expected to be quite fast. We are in what we call the entrance region to that jet right here. And that's generally a spot where you can get good rising motion. And that's why I think there's good evidence that maybe getting into next week, we've got a better chance in Ag South territory of returning into more thunderstorm activity. This will be the last week of the month, though, all right? So let's put it all in context. This is where we've been so far this month. These are precipitation ranks by climate district. I'm thinking a lot about these places in not only here in North Carolina, but also in Virginia. A couple of spots here in South Carolina and southern Georgia that have been quite dry compared to average. We've had storms at times, but overall, statistically, we sit on the drier side of the distribution. Now, the tropical system that's going to be coming into southern Texas is going to be huge because they have been near record dry in that particular area. And just a reminder, the place where all the flash drought is going to try to set up here is a place that over the last, 20 days and even going back into July has been extremely wet. Now, do you see those places I was telling you about, though? If you look right here in Iowa, this pocket into parts of Kansas and Missouri, see that one right there? This western side of it's been very dry. And then you can see some spots here in Nebraska that need a lot more moisture out of this. We can compare this again to the newest drought monitor. This maybe kind of helps complete the story. This is the latest update we got last Thursday. And again, start to see this expanding area in North and South Carolina where we're now in that abnormally dry category. But we'll see improvement here. And of course, we're going to really work hard on wiping some of this out with some of the rains that just came in here. I'm talking about California and Nevada, then getting up into parts of Idaho and Montana as well. One last thing to look at. This is the latest 16-inch soil moisture percentile data. So remember, when you look at this, you're not seeing the percent of moisture in the soil. That's a different product. This is looking at history and telling you where you sit on the distribution. So I like to use it because it tells us compared to normal what our soil moisture is. Now, do you see those pockets I was looking at here, and there? This is a region that down to 16 inches, I know it looks dry, but this part of the Corn Belt has plenty of topsoil moisture. But take a look over here. We do have a drier strip showing up in the NASA data. So I just wanted to kind of give you that information so we can build upon this as we watch the lack of precipitation this week, except for the isolated storms, but then the better chances getting into next week. On the temperature side of it, this is what the temperatures have looked like so far in the month of, that's the month of July. Let me go ahead and get this running for you here. I missed one thing. Let's click on that. And let me flip this over to, there we go. Let's try that again. But while that's going, I'm going to show you this. There we go. This is the month of August, but we're looking at low temperature ranks. Now notice, I mentioned cotton a little while ago. The overnight low temperatures on this stretch of our cotton belt have been near record warm. It's only been this part right up here in the Mid-South that's had near normal overnight lows, but I want you to see how warm it has been in this stretch of the cotton belt with overnight lows. Corn Belt, not the problem. We're going to see a major increase in it this week, but not right now. So let me go back to the other map I tried to make, which is here. And it looks like the color bar got a little funky, but that's okay. It still says the same thing. This is the warm, this is the cold side of it. And you can see that we have been hot in terms of our average temperature ranks as well. So it's been a warm go of it right in this particular corridor. Now we talk about that because going from Sunday, which was a scorcher in the midsection of the country, into Monday, our temperatures are now back up in the mid-90s. We've got triple-digit heat in the midsection of the country. In fact, we saw a heat index in Kansas on Sunday of 135 degrees Fahrenheit. As we then get into Tuesday, all that heat, the epicenter of it's up here in Iowa, Nebraska, getting out to South Dakota, Minnesota. We are still deep in the 90s here in Ag South territory. We then get into Wednesday, Thursday, our normal temperatures possibly kind of coming back here. But then Friday, another wave of heat coming through, getting out into Saturday. Now, notice the cool down happening. That's when that trough dives in and starts to pull that jet I mentioned. That's going to give us the better chances for rainfall into week 2. It's also doing this to the week 2 temperatures. So this is the next 5 days. That is day 5 through 10. See the cooler weather here? And then as we play it out day 10 through 15, which gives us the first 5 days of September, we see closer to normal with a slight warm bias in our temperatures going forward. So the heat is mostly coming in the next 5 to 6 days before the weekend quick shot at some cooler air. And that's the mainstay of our temperature pattern. Now, since we're past mid-month, we did get the newest updates for the long range, so let's have a quick talk about that. First thing I'm going to let you know is this. Southern Oscillation Index. This is an index I use to gauge the strength of El Nino. It's way down here, somewhere over the last week or so between minus 13, 14, that range. So that's plenty low in order to consider the tropical activity in the Pacific to behave like El Nino. We also can see this. We got new long-range data that came out from the CPC on Friday, and they made the adjustment I thought they'd make. More chances of above normal temperatures. In fact, I'd continue to modify this to bring better chances into early September of warmth farther to the north. But again, notice how there isn't a call at this point to go over dry. We're not seeing that in the forecast, going forward. What is in the forecast going forward comes back to this discussion about El Nino, because you see right now that the ocean temperatures continue to get warmer in this area. We're still very warm in the Atlantic. That's going to be critical for the hurricane season. But the warmth that's coming into this area, we're now 1.2 degrees Celsius above average here. Some places over by South America are up to 3 degrees to 5 degrees C above average. And this area of cooler water, which used to come all the way up here along the west coast, is gone. That's out. So just thinking about that, we want to assess what it means if we continue to see, the risk of El Nino take hold of what our fall is going to be like. So I got some new data to share with you. This was released late last week. It came from the CPC. This is their outlook for September. Now, what's interesting is the CPC outlook compared to the long-range European model are way different. European model is drier, but the CPC has this wetter bias, and it makes sense given the activity we've lately seen in the Atlantic and the likelihood of the Bermuda High expanding west, delivering better tropical moisture to this area as we go into the month of September. Plus, September is the peak of hurricane season. What we've also got is new long-range outlook. This is the new 3-month outlook. You notice September, October, November, expected to be mild. It's also expected to be wetter for most of Ag South territory. This is a part of our long-standing narrative that the chance of deep drought development is minimal. Now, we have dry areas. I'm not denying that one bit, but the chance of long-range drought development has been kind of minimized here as we go into this fall time period. What I also want to show you is if you come to this website, you can click on the word 3-month outlook, and it'll take you to their forecast system. So now you can pick out the time you want to look at. So I don't know, we can pick on October, November, December, and you can see the temperature or the precipitation outlook. Now, knowing that we have got an El Nino building, the precipitation outlooks are going to be wet for Ag South territory from now all the way through winter. And that's because winters with El Nino tend to have strong subtropical jets. They split over the west, making it dry in the Pacific Northwest, and they come back together in this area. So it doesn't matter. I could just keep showing you these maps all the way through winter, and they're going to all show you wetter conditions going through winter because of the developing El Nino. And on the temperature side of it, I don't know. Let's just go look at winter. Why not? We do expect near normal to cooler than normal temperatures. And the thing I don't like about winters that look like El Nino is we have had in the historical past more of a risk of getting these Miller A storm systems that start in Louisiana, go to Florida, and then race up the East Coast, which sometimes give us the risk of ice due to cold air damming up against the Appalachian Mountains and the Blue Ridge Mountains. So I want you to be aware that I'm going to be watching that, because as it stands, the likelihood of this El Nino, let me take you to it real quick, staying as strong as it is or even getting stronger according to every major modeling center is the case. So this will probably be classified as not just a strong, but maybe a very strong, bordering on a super Nino if it does hit some of these temperatures forecast by the Australians. So another way to look at it, let's do a couple more things here. I keep hitting this tab, but I want to show it to you now. This is the newest update from the IRI multi-model probability forecast system. I'm going to show it to you globally because there's a couple things I think you should take note of. This is September, October, November. Notice that it has, if you just kind of look in here, in fact, I'll just do this for us real quick. Let's go to North America. It has us, mostly wetter, all right? Mostly wetter in that time frame. But let's pop this back out global, because I want you to see that there is some risk in northern Brazil to a later start to the monsoon. Remember, the monsoon Timing is critical for when Brazil will plant its crop of soybeans. At this point, I'm not overly concerned, but if the monsoon's a bit late, it could compress their crop calendar. Something for us to just think about. Australia is going to be drier. Parts of Indonesia are expected to be drier. Same with the Philippines. But notice you're going to have some pockets of Europe that are looking at a wetter fall, and I don't yet have a strong signal out of Asia, out of China specifically. Why don't we just go ahead and look at December, January, February, just for the fun of it? Again, see how wet things are expected to be here? But look how wet we're expecting things to be in southern Brazil or down into Argentina. And notice how the dryness is expected to be in the Amazon, not where we grow crop. If this verifies, South America could be looking at a very, very large crop, something we have to continue to be monitoring and watching very carefully. But those are some of our outlooks. We expect it to be cooler than average across the southern tier of the United States for this winter. Now, some other evidence. I know I jumped way ahead to winter, but I want to come back and show you one other thing. I stitched together for us every September, October, and November that had a developing El Nino. And again, do you see the wetter risks in through this area? There's possibly some drier along the coast, but wetter from Texas all the way up to the mid-Atlantic, and that's going to hit a lot of Ag South territory. And it's also a reminder that when you just correlate fall weather, September, October, November, let's blow that up, to El Nino, we tend to see the warmer colors representing wetter than normal conditions. So I wanted to bring this all to your attention because it's going to be stuff we're watching very carefully. But right now, this is the main story. Massive ridge, isolated storms, tropical systems staying away from us for the next week. We're going to watch this ridge change its position, and then we're going to get into the heart of the hurricane season, which is going to be probably the most important thing for us to watch. So that's it. That's what I want to talk to you about. Start off this week. Hope you have a great week, and we'll catch up again next Monday. Thanks.